Welcome to the FAQ Shack. This is the show where we tackle your biggest questions by doing a deep dive into the source material. And today, we've got a really big one.
So today's whole explainer actually comes from a listener request. Alex from Toronto wrote in, and like a lot of us, Alex is trying to get a handle on the history behind some of the really serious legal accusations that are all over the news right now.
Okay, so Alex asks, with everything happening, I'm struggling to grasp the history. What are the key events and reports that form the basis of the legal challenges against Israel today? That is a fantastic and really important question. So to get to the heart of it, we're going to dive into the source documents and the historical accounts to connect the dots. Let's get into it.
All right, let's start with what's happening right now. We're talking about a huge legal battle unfolding at the International Court of Justice.
So what you're looking at here is the core of the case, and it really comes down to two totally opposite interpretations of the exact same events. On one hand, you have South Africa's accusation, which alleges that Israel's actions, quote, are genocidal in character. But on the other hand, Israel's defense is that it's fighting a war of, quote, self-defense that's in line with international law. It's a fundamental clash of narratives.
Okay, so to really get the context for this legal fight, we have to rewind the clock. We're going all the way back to a single, foundational event in 1948.
The term that Palestinians use to describe this period is the Nakba. As you can see, it's an Arabic word, and it translates to the catastrophe, or the disaster. And that word really tells you everything about the profound impact this event had.
And the scale of this, it's just staggering. We're talking about more than 750,000 people. Now, to put that in perspective, the sources we're looking at, which cite UN estimates and historians, say that that was about half the entire Arab population of Mandatory Palestine at the time, just gone from their homes.
So the big question is, how did this happen? Well, historical scholarship points to a whole bunch of factors. We're talking about direct expulsions by Israeli forces for one. Then you have the destruction of somewhere between 400 and 600 Arab villages. There was also psychological warfare, creating this atmosphere of fear, fear of massacres. And on top of that, the collapse of Palestinian leadership. Some sources even cite a biological warfare program that involved poisoning wells. It's a lot to take in, but most scholars agree that violence and fear were the main reasons people fled.
And this leads us to another key theme that just keeps coming up in the sources: the conduct of the military during armed conflicts.
Yeah, take a look at this timeline. It really shows how these questions have popped up again and again over the decades. It starts back in 1948 with the Nakba we just talked about. Then you jump to 1982 and the Sabra and Shatila massacre. And then it brings us right up to today with the current allegations in Gaza.
And that 1982 event is pretty remarkable because it was Israel's own inquiry, the Kahan Commission, that looked into it. They found the state was, quote, indirectly responsible for the massacre. They went even further, concluding that the defense minister Ariel Sharon bore, quote, personal responsibility for basically ignoring the danger and letting it happen.
Now let's jump forward to more recent times. There's an organization called Breaking the Silence, which is made up of former Israeli soldiers. And in their testimonies, they describe a practice called the mosquito procedure. As the definition on screen says, this is where soldiers were allegedly ordered to use Palestinian civilians as human shields, basically to go into buildings that they thought might be booby-trapped. It's a really serious allegation.
This actually brings us to a follow-up we got from another listener. Mark asks, I hear the term proportionality a lot. What does it actually mean in the laws of war? And Mark, that is a fantastic question, because this term is so central to everything happening now, but it's also really misunderstood. Okay, so here's the deal with proportionality. It's not about an eye for an eye or matching force with equal force. It's more of a balancing act. The law says you can't launch an attack where the harm to civilians is, quote, excessive in relation to the concrete and direct military advantage anticipated. So you have to weigh the two. And as you can probably guess, figuring out what counts as excessive is where all the controversy and legal debate really kicks in.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and look at another area that human rights reports have really zeroed in on: the conditions inside the Israeli prison system.
So what you're seeing here is a visual from a really powerful 2024 report by B'Tselem, which is actually an Israeli human rights organization. And just look at that title, Welcome to Hell, the Israeli Prison System as a Network of Torture Camps. That title comes directly from the greeting that new prisoners allegedly receive. And here's the quote itself. When we got off the bus, a soldier said to us, "Welcome to hell." That comes from the testimony of a man named Fuad Hassan, a 45-year-old father. And his story is just one of dozens documented in this report. And the report makes it clear that these aren't just one-off incidents.
It alleges that this is a systemic issue. The testimonies collected describe a whole range of abuses: severe and arbitrary violence, humiliation, being deliberately starved, not getting proper medical treatment, extreme overcrowding, and sleep deprivation. It's a really harrowing list of allegations.
Which brings us right back to where we began this whole discussion, the push for accountability using international law.
So let's talk about the ICJ's initial ruling. This was a really big moment. The court found that it was, and this is the key word, plausible that Israel's acts could amount to genocide. Now, plausible is a legal term. It doesn't mean proven, but it means the accusation is serious and credible enough for the case to move forward.
But, and this is a really important but, the court went out of its way to clarify that this was not a final ruling. They weren't saying that Israel is in breach of the convention. They were simply saying, okay, we have the jurisdiction to actually hear this case because the claims are plausible. The final judgment is still years away.
And this really leaves us with the central, unresolved question at the heart of this whole thing, doesn't it? When all these historical grievances meet the formal, slow-moving mechanisms of international law, what does justice even look like? And who is it for? That's the question that hangs over everything.
Whew, okay. We hope this explainer helped provide at least some of the historical context for what's happening today. It's a really complex and difficult topic for sure. But now we want to know what you want us to tackle next. What big questions should the FAQ Shack break down for you? Drop your suggestions in the comments below.